player card. Oh. So they don't even come in.
And we are live, folks. I am here with a special guest.
If we have,
the last
like,
time you were
say,
on our show, I don't know
shuffle
if you guys know
them
who this is,
at
Alan
one
Moon, the host of this great shindig, The Gathering. And the last time you were on, you were like the jokester.
I'm not going to do that today.
See, for me, I don't have to get the jokes, and I mean, if you want to, you can. Tom's not here right now, so we can go with anything. But I guess oh wait, Tom's over there. I just heard that. So I guess everyone's saying hi as we're in here.
Hey.
So tell us about this. I mean, for people at home who obviously can't come to this, tell us how you kind of came up with the idea for the gathering and what you thought.
Well, the gathering today is a lot different than what started out. There were 23 people at the first one and maybe 28 the second year, and it was just friends, getting together and playing games. And somehow in the last 10, 12 years, it became a little bit of an industry event. It started out with some game company reps coming and designers coming, and it's just gotten more and more. And there was no intention of mine or no planning. It's just that's the way it's developed, and it makes sense because I know lots of designers, obviously, and game company reps, and the event now just has a rep as being like probably the best place to show prototypes. So you come, there's no other agenda, there's no marketing, no sales. You just come and play prototypes, and you can go out, socialize with people, go out to dinner. And so it's a really relaxed place for the game company reps. It's a little stressful for game designers, of course. When you go someplace like Gen Con or Toy Fair, sometimes you have a half-hour appointment to show all your prototypes. That's tough and it's stressful. Here, you get to play the whole game a lot of times. And like I said, and you get a lot of feedback. It's the thing that's really changed in the last 10 years. I hadn't shown a lot of prototypes over the last 10 years. You get so much more feedback, which is great. Now, some of it's very negative. It's like, oh, we don't like this, we don't like that, but it's still really helpful. And for instance, I showed a prototype last year that everybody hated, but it was great. They gave us lots of. I worked with Bobby West, and we got a lot of feedback. So we brought the game back this year. We got much better feedback this year, but the funny thing was they all remembered the game from last year, which surprised me. But there was something about it that they remembered. But that's a huge deal for a designer to go and have somebody from Hans and Gluck and all the other companies give you feedback about not only what they think of the game, but what they're looking for, and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me this is one of the most relaxing conventions. I mean, we get to see prototypes, which, even though he doesn't know this, don't worry, I'll spoil all the details shortly after he leaves. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, we get to play prototypes. A lot of people ask our opinions. What did you think of this? What did you think of that? Obviously, we've played tons and tons of games for the channel, so people trust our opinion on mechanics and other things and what we feel, and then just the fact that you can relax. And for me, I like that we don't have a booth or other things that we have to worry about. We're just kind of here and enjoying, and it's a very, very casual convention.
Yeah. And there's still lots of people who come just to play games. Some of them like playing prototypes, so that's what their focus. But some of them just come to meet up with friends they only see, once or twice a year. And certainly for me, there's lots of people I only see here. That's the only time I see them.
So we got questions coming already. Let's start at the top here.
Ticket to ride Chile. That was interesting.
Someone here, Dutch Yoda, is asking about, are you planning any ticket to ride sets for South America, for those who live in South America?
There's no plans at the moment. It's a odd. When I do a map, one of the considerations is whether it actually fits into a rectangle, and sometimes. Like South America, when you try to make that fit into a rectangle, you have huge amounts of water. And this is the main problem with maps, is when you put it on there, you lose just half the board space because it's unplayable. It's water or something else. And South America has other problems because, it has a lot of jungle too, and most of Chile and Argentina in the south is very sparsely populated. So it would be a tough map to do. And then the other issue is that if I then take part of it, then it doesn't look like South America because people expect it to be that
distinctive
shape. So it's a little tough. We had the same issue with Russia, that We really wanted to do a Russian map, but if you put the whole map of Russia on there, it doesn't work. So I saw a fan-based map on Russia recently, which did exactly what I wanted to do, which was just take a piece of Russia, but then it doesn't look like Russia.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting issue.
Well, I don't know about Rob's idea there, Ticket to Ride to the Moon.
Yeah, we've thought about making more fantasy versions and things like that, and that could happen. Licenses are tough. We don't really want to go with licenses, so but it could happen, or some kind of space game. Yeah.
So I see another question here about the gathering. Did the gathering start out at your home, or did you rent a venue for the first one?
Yeah, the first one was in a little hotel in Springfield, Massachusetts. We had, I think the meeting room, there wasn't a meeting room, we had 2 hotel rooms that they cleared out, like across the hall from each other. I think the second year we actually had a small meeting room, and then it kind of grew from there. But it's always been at a hotel.
Yeah, so Joan's asking another question here about expansion maps for rails and sails, since he would like to use the ships more often in the games.
Yeah, there's no plans to do an expansion for rails and sails. It could happen in the future. The game's done pretty well, but there's no plans at the moment. Yeah, the ships are real nice. So.
Yeah, they are, and I love the whole, you have to decide how many trains you want, how many ships you want at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
It totally messes with you.
Yeah, I think in the first game, people don't, that's not too much of a factor. But after you understand, there's definitely the way you play the game is you focus on one or the other generally.
Oh, well, here's an interesting thing. So, Cat Daddy is saying, I'd like to formally request to be invited. So tell us about this. I know, obviously, this is on an invitation. Tell us about this and what happens, kind of.
It's tough. I mean, this hotel where we are now really has a limitation on rooms and on meeting space. So that's what's kept the number at about that point. I turned down more people this year than I turned down the last 10 years combined, including some people who had attended before. It used to be that if you had attended, you were always invited, and I think there's been 11 or 1,200 people who've come, unique people who've come over the years. So, of course, they're not really all invited anymore. And it's not impossible to get here. It's just, and there's no formal. It used to be I would take nominations, and so people would nominate somebody and have to convince me that we used to have a second and a third, and but now there's not even that. It's more, it's sort of like, to be honest with you, it's who you know and how you go about things, and I don't want to exclude everybody, or anybody particularly, but it's just the limitation of the space and the event, and I don't want to have an event. I don't want to have to go to a convention center and run an event for 2,000 people.
Yeah.
That's just not what I want to do. So somebody else is willing to, because certainly welcome to start their own event, and plenty of people are. But my event, I want it to be private, and I want it to be a certain thing, and it's not meant to exclude anybody. There's tons of people. I go to other conventions and meet tons of nice people. It's just that just means I have to work harder to run a bigger event, and I don't want to do that. So.
Well, I know all about that. I mean, our cruise right now, we're up to about 700 people are going
it's
on
huge.
the cruise that I'm running,
and
it's tough to have to manage that many people.
Absolutely, and then you respond. And people. There's so many things that go on. I mean, we have somebody go to the hospital almost every year. Just with 400 people, the odds are somebody's going to have a problem. And you just get, you get so many cancellations. You have to plan for that. And that can be a very variable number going up or down. So I try to always overbook like airlines and everybody else does. But, you just can't tell how many people are going to cancel. And there's so many factors. It's not I like organizing it, and most of the time, and I have people who are really good when they help me, they're really good at what they do. But it's sort of a thankless job no matter what you do.
I know. Trust me, I know. I'm so surprised that somehow just little old me got invited. I'm like, wow.
That's Jason's a great guy if you don't know him.
Oh, someone's asking about the anniversary edition, and that you didn't really use the yellow. You kind of changed up some colors in it, but you did really cool pieces in this version.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't have much to do with the anniversary edition. They decided they were going to make that, and I don't, companies don't consult designers most of the time on things like art and components. I have a really good relationship with Days of Wonder, and we work together on the development of games. But the anniversary edition was just something they decided to do, so I didn't have anything to do with that. I think it looks great. So.
Yep. Okay. Let me get to some more questions here. So just for your gaming taste, Seth is asking, what are games that you typically like, and what are games that you typically don't like? Just your normal gaming outside of what you design.
Yeah, I like the games that have like too many decisions that are real brain burners. That's not for me. Now there are exceptions, which make every rule, but like the victory salad type of games, those just aren't for me. My design philosophy is to give people 2 or 3 decisions, lots of little 2 or 3 decision places, and once you get beyond that, I just get a little overwhelmed and don't really, that's not fun for me to have 15 different decisions. So that's part of it. Games I like, I love anything with cards. That influences, what I do a lot. Sometimes I have a game without cards and it's not working, and I think, well, it's time to add some cards because I just like the feel of having cards in my hand.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be cards; it could be tiles or anything. But holding something in your hand is very satisfying for me. So I like a lot, and simple games like there's the buzz this year is about this game called The Mind, which is just like the simplest possible game, and I'm sure every designer here thinks like, why did I think of that?
I know, literally,
so amazing. Yeah,
I was blown away by that one. I'm like, how did they come up with these new things?
Oh yeah, and everybody thinks like, well, how come nobody came up with this 20 years ago? It's so simple, and that's really the compliment to somebody. Like when you think like, oh, I wish I had designed it. It's so simple. How come I never thought of it? That's the ultimate compliment, I think, that you can give somebody. So it's just and the guy has, all of a sudden this guy is out of nowhere has 6 published games. It makes me wonder how he got to the publishers, because it's not, it's if you don't know anything about the game business, it's not that easy to even figure out who to show it to. But he all of a sudden has 6 games, and people are saying 4 of them are really good, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Yes. The roll and write one is really good too.
Yeah,
it's incredible what this guy's done out of nowhere.
And what I thought immediately was like in the music business, sometimes somebody brings out a first album and it's great, and then you never hear from him again. So I'm curious to see whether he's going to be able to maintain that, which would be really incredible. So. Yeah.
Well, you've been through a lot of that. When you started out with White Wind, and kind of did your own publishing at the time, and then you obviously after Ticket to Ride, you kind of got out of the publishing. But I guess for people at home that don't know this, tell us about your whole story, how you started out with your own company.
Yeah, I think I started my company for the same reason most designers do. Either you're a little frustrated. I was a little frustrated that I couldn't get more games published. And thought, okay, well, this is a way to get some games out there and increase my portfolio. And I really thought that I would do limited editions and then in a year or 2 be able to sell them on to companies, and that just didn't happen. And it was very stressful running my own company. It didn't have any of the advantages today, like the internet. The internet's such a huge advantage, and Kickstarter and everything. So it was very stressful, and I did everything wrong that you could possibly do. I wasn't a businessman at the time. I think I am now, but it wasn't until 1997, it was 7 years later, that I actually got a break from it. And it worked out in the end, but it was a long haul, and there were lots of times when, I was thinking, like, what am I going to do for my life, because I'm not being successful as a designer. And that's a tough moment, because you have this dream of being successful and you want to hang on to the dream, but at some point you have to be realistic too and say, can you really make a success out of it? And here's the thing I'm going to tell you, which will, I tell everybody, is you can do everything right and you can be good. And I'm certainly not the most creative or smart person around. There's tons of people, but you still need like about 90% luck to be successful. Yeah, it's true. And you just, like I said, you can do everything right, but you need that break, and you just need everything to go right in a very short amount of time, and people make the right decisions, and it's just luck.
Yeah, if you think about it, when you did Elfin Road years ago, you had a similar mechanic to Ticket to Ride, with collecting and playing out, and it obviously the original edition sold out, but it was only a small print run. And then you take the same mechanic but change it to a train theme and make it a little more family friendly, and boom, it just blows up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider it the same mechanic, but I mean, I do a certain type of game, and just found the right combination, and it's just I look at the way that the game developed and just was sold and came out. I mean, it's just everything went right the whole way along. It's incredible. I mean, there's so many things that could have been different, and if I'd sold it to a different company, would it have done as well? Who knows? So
yeah, it's just so interesting. When you look back at your history and see what you look back and you see what you've done over the years and how you've progressed from game to game. And
I mean, you want to talk about luck? I mean, in 2001, I had 3 games come out that were nominated for Game of the Year: Capital, San Marco, and Das Amulet.
Yeah.
And I really thought, in most years, one of those would have had a chance to win, but that was the year of Carcassonne. And so, so for me, I did the exact wrong thing, because I thought having 3 good games in a year would give me a better chance, when if I had spread those out over 3 years, that would have, but that was just a decision I made, because I didn't know Carcassonne was coming out the same year. So.
Yeah, you never know. And then you come out like San Marco, especially. I love I split you choose. I love that mechanic.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first games that had that mechanic, in fact.
People sometimes give me or other designers credit for inventing something, and I think like the scorecards coming out randomly in games, I've seen people give me credit for that. That's just absolutely not true. It was what I got it from was a game called Summit from the 60s in Open Belly, and maybe it was in other games before that, but I loved that game as a kid, so that's where I took that mechanic from. The thing with like a display of cards that I use a lot, which wasn't in games too much before. I don't remember a specific game that was from, but I'm guessing it was in games before I used it. Just because most games come from other games.
Yeah, I mean, the only older game I could think of that had a display was Web of Power. The only other game I could think of that really had that. There's some cards, and you could either take those or take, as I call it, the mystery meat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so So Union Pacific was probably the first of my games with that, but I'm pretty sure I must have seen that in some other game, or it might have come from just playing card games, and it was a good idea. Like even Gin Rummy, like you have a display, right? So I think not that there aren't truly innovative concepts, like obviously Magic the Gathering, like incredible number of concepts in that game that are just totally different, I think. And just the way you use them, and that produced its own whole family genre of games. That's cool.
Yes. When you look back at the history and see the innovation of something like Dominion and deck building, and now there's deck builders everywhere. But who would have thought of it 10 years ago? And
I think you can make a case that without Magic there would be no Dominion.
Exactly.
Right? So you can see the path. So. The things that are truly innovative, like Dungeons and Dragons, but even that, you can say that there was probably role-playing before that. It was just that those guys took that live role-playing, in a sense, and made it into a game. So
yes, exactly. Someone's asking your 3 favorite authors' books.
Books? Oh, you mean like real books?
Like real books, yeah.
I tend to read about 20 authors that I read all the time. 3 favorites. I love James Lee Burke. He writes about a detective in Louisiana. He's probably the most sophisticated writer that I read, because his books are really literature. I like a lot of easy to read books like James Patterson type of stuff. I like Elmore Leonard a lot. He has kind of funky books. There are some authors that have just gone away, which is real sad for me. I love this guy named Dennis Jones. He did some techno thrillers, like Russian Spring and something else. They were just amazing books. But he hasn't written a book in years. Same with a woman. I think she's still writing, but just different type of book. She wrote a trilogy about Eskimos. And gosh, I can't. Sue Harrison was her name. And they were just amazing books, but she hasn't done anything else like that. So.
Yeah. No,
so really... I tend to like techno thrillers, crime books, not really detective stories, but more about crime. And then occasionally just like historical books that I only read fiction. I don't read nonfiction. Yeah, so I have a lot of. Oh, I know. I love the Spencer series by then by Robert Parker, and it was real sad that he's died. Guess as you get older, that's inevitable. It's a bummer when the people you really love.
Yeah, yeah. So I've seen a whole bunch of people ask about Markland. I know it was kind of re-released as Ticket to Ride Germany instead of Markland, and they're asking if there will be a Markland reprint, or are you just going now with Germany?
Yeah, there won't be a Markland reprint. That was a real sad story. We sold the license to Markland. Markland is the biggest train company in Europe, and family-owned company for years and years. As soon as we sold the license, they were sold to a corporation. And it was just the idea of the game was to have it in every train, in every gift store, in every train station. And that just never happened, which was, the game, I would say it's probably the game I most, not regret, but like I wish I'd done a little differently. It's a little too fiddly and a little too complicated for what it should be. So the new Germany is simpler and I think more in keeping with the Ticket to Ride series. But I think even if we wanted to reprint Markland, we couldn't because we don't have the license anymore. So.
Yeah. So someone asked, it was about, here it is. Obviously you designed the most famous train game, but have you played other ones like the 18X, and do you enjoy other train games?
Oh, I mean, sure. When I worked at Avalon Hill, we sort of brought the 18XX series over. A guy named Bruce Shelley was really the guy who started the European invasion, although most people don't know who he is. And I loved 1829, and there was only a couple of them existed at that point. 1830 was the new one at Avalon Hill. I loved playing games like that, and I still probably would if I felt like I could spend that much time on them, but it's hard to dedicate 12 hours to a train game, and when I can be doing so many other things. But yeah, I like that. I used to play Railway Rivals, which is a pen and pencil game, crayon game. I played it for years in by mail magazines, and then. I really, I always enjoyed that. I played the Avalon Hill game, Railroad Baron, a number of times.
Yeah, Rail Baron.
Enjoyed that. Yeah, there's a number of good train games. The more modern ones, nothing really stands out for me. I can't think of one that I really play regularly. But I'm hoping there will be another one because I love anything to do with trains.
Me too. I mean, 18X is my number one. When we do my top 100, 18XX was my number one in my top 100, and now I know the story behind it. Alan's the one who brought the game. So
no, not me. It was Bruce Shelley. It was when I went to work at Avalon Hill. A guy named Bruce Shelley came to work there after me, and he was in touch with people in Europe through all these play-by-mail magazines and fan mail. And so he started talking about all this stuff. So we Avalon Hill brought over Kremlin and like I said, it became 1830 instead of 1820. Those were, two of the first games that came over.
Yeah.
And that started the awareness of people. And it still was very, very low key for a long time. And then Civilization, also by Francis Toschi.
Yeah.
Those were the games that first came over. But in a sense, they had always been in America. Like Ravensburger games were in some gift stores, particularly in Quebec, like they had the French editions. So they were always here, but just nobody much knew about them. So, and it took a while for things to build up. I went to Essen in 1990, I think, the first time, and that was just an incredible experience. Just to be there and just see that there was a game world. It was amazing. And like I had the same kind of feeling last year. I hadn't been to Gen Con in 10 years, and I went last year, and I was just overwhelmed by the size of it.
I know.
Incredible. And just, what I think the most surprising thing for me with all the Kickstarter editions, you've got games that look beautiful. There's so many companies I'd never heard of and just beautiful looking productions. Whether they're good games or not, I'll let you decide, but I was just overwhelmed by just how many great looking products there were and how many people were in attendance. And it was the other thing I think surprised me at Gen Con was how few kids there were. It was mostly adults, There weren't a lot of families. There were some, but it was mostly, tons of people in costume and everything else, But it was an interesting experience for me. It reminded me of the first year I went to Essen,
Yeah, I mean, it's Gen Con. I mean, everything. This industry has exploded.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, it's
And-
cool. And thanks to you guys too, like the Dice Tower and all you guys doing all this video stuff and internet stuff. It's huge. There's so much more awareness. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. I mean, I look back 10, 15 years ago. I was an Avalon Hill guy when I was in college.
Yeah.
And playing the games. Obviously not working there like you, but I was playing the games, and I look back and I'm like, wow, there's like a whole, just what the industry's gone through from
Yeah.
like the early '90s
Oh
to
my
now.
gosh. Yeah, huge. Yeah, just huge differences. Like, I mean, if I were crazy enough to start another game company now, I would probably would be able to avoid most of the mistakes, and you can get funding on Kickstarter. It's just, it would be more stressful and less stressful at the same time, right? But, I would never do it again. I think I learned my lesson and learned a lot from it. It wasn't a bad thing in the end, but, and I totally understand why people do it, and I think you should follow your dream whenever you can. But, yeah, there's huge advantages, and I think you need to, everybody needs to go through that same, learning process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now I guess you're a designer extraordinaire and convention director extraordinaire.
I don't know about that. Life is good. I mean, I'm at a point where, I don't have to worry about, finances, obviously, and that makes your life easier. But, it adds a lot of responsibility too. So it's not all. I wish I could go on vacations, constantly, but that doesn't happen. In fact, I feel like I don't know how I ever worked like an 8-hour job, because it's like my day is full, and like if I had to go to work for 8 hours or 10 hours a day, I just don't know how I would handle my life. So
I still do that. On top of this.
Yeah, I mean, when I had a job, working at Ravensburger, I was working 60-hour weeks. I used to go to work and come home, go to the gym, and go to bed. I couldn't design games, and that's the sad part. Is like lots of people, you really want to make your life designing games, but you got to also have the reality of living. So
exactly. But I mean, but you've done a lot for this industry, so I know everyone at home appreciates that.
Well, I appreciate you all watching. I hope it wasn't too boring.
Well, what do you guys think? Just put the comments in. We are reading them, Carrie. In case you're wondering, we do see the chat, so put in your comments quickly for Alan, because I guess we're gonna soon get to our next guest here, Phil Walker Harding.
Hey.
But I mean, this is great. We're looking forward to next year. Next year is the 30th year.
Yeah, next year, it's hard to imagine, but it's the 30th year. My wife Janet wants me to go to 50, so we'll see.
So 21 more years of this. Yes.
We'll see if that happens.
Well, thank you as always for
Jason.
coming on.
Thanks everybody for watching.
And we'll see you soon, and looking forward to playing lots of stuff the rest of the week.
Thanks, Jason.
So we're going to bring Phil Walker Harding in, designer, as you guys know. He did Imhotep and Barron Park recently, and has a lot of new cool things that I've got to play here. So let's bring Phil in. Welcome. If you guys have questions, start putting them out for Phil, and we'll go from there. And so tell us a little about your background. I know you're from Australia, so
Yep.
How did you get involved with the gaming industry so far away from where everything's going on?
It's a good question. Well, there is a gaming industry in Australia. It's not huge, but when I got into German games, I sought out that hobby in Australia and pretty quickly decided to start self-publishing my own games. And I guess the way I got connected up with the wider industry was that one year Z-Man Games came to the Australian Games Expo, and I pitched one of my first self-published games, Archaeology, the card game, to him there, and he picked it up with Z-Man, and that kind of started my little journey with publishing. Went over to Essen one year, pitched a few more games, and just slowly built up a few designs, and things just kind of progress over the years. But it can be a bit difficult living so far away from it all. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, luckily with the internet, it's much easier to communicate with the rest of the world now. So, when you design, are you doing a lot of back and forth, internet-wise, and getting in touch with people for playtesting other things?
I haven't really done playtesting across wide distances. but obviously dealing with publishers and developing games with them becomes a long distance thing, which is email and Skype a lot. Yep. So I'm often up at really late on Skype. And I've done a couple of collaborations with other designers, and again, a lot of that is email and Skype. So coming to something like The Gathering is, amazing for me, because suddenly the publishers and designers I want to be interacting with are all in one hotel at one time.
Yes, we were just talking about that with Alan, about how it's a great pace to play test and get ideas on your prototypes. I got to play a few of yours this week, and they're really good stuff coming out. So if you guys like Phil's designs, there's some really good stuff coming out.
Thanks.
But I see some questions here from our audience, so let's see what they have to say here. Baron Park. Why do a game about bear parks instead of kangaroos? I mean, from Australia, you should have brought this theme in.
Well, there are koalas in the game, which are an Australian animal. Well, the original design wasn't that theme. It was a theme park, so each tile was a different ride in your amusement park. And Lookout picked it up, the publisher, and I think there'd been a couple of theme park games in recent years, and they wanted just a bit of a theme that would stand out a bit. So they came up with this idea of a wildlife park, and so that's how it came about, and I think it worked really well. But they picked the theme, so that's why that's why it's not full of Australian cliches. Yes.
So in case you're wondering, the designer might not actually have final say on the theme of a game. That gets decided later by the publisher. Chris here has another question. Why do you think Sushi Go was such a success, and did you know it would be when you designed it?
No, not at all. I just thought, so after I designed archaeology, I spent the next few years coming up with the next short card game design that I would do, and I churned through so many ideas, dozens and dozens of ideas. And when Sushi Go finally clicked, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the next filler game I'll put out. That's how I thought of it. And it just kind of exploded, which has been amazing to see. Why? I think it's a combination of, I think passing and drafting, that mechanism, there's just something inherently fun about that. Like the first time you experience that, it's just a fun way to play with cards.
Yes.
So I think taking that to a very accessible level is a big reason. And I think the theme and the art being cute and fun helps a lot, and makes it very accessible, especially for kids. And hopefully it's helped, maybe it's been an introduction to some really casual gamers, some just ideas about different ways you can score in a game and how that can lead to different decision-making points throughout a round. So somewhere in there is why it's probably taken off, but I don't really know. I mean, it's been incredible to see it happen, and
it's a very accessible kind of passing and drafting kind of game. So it's nice. It fits in family. It fits in a lot of genres, like card, drafting, and obviously light family games. So it hit the right niche.
I think part of it was just the timing. It came out at a time when that was something people, a gap that needed to be filled, and I'm really thankful.
Yeah. So Carrie here says, and I'm probably gonna say it's wrong, but good day from a Queenslander.
Hello.
So which part of Australia are you in?
So I'm from Sydney.
Uh-huh.
In New South Wales. So Queenslanders are our mortal enemies in sport.
Sorry, Carrie.
Although, in recent years they've beat us at everything, so you don't have to apologise.
Well then, sorry, Phil. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Another interesting question from Otter. Baron Park. They named it with a German name. Obviously, in English, it's still called Baron Park.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it is. How come an Australian guy gave a board game a German name?
Well, again, I didn't pick the name. That was the publisher picked the name, and I just assumed in the English edition it will be called Bear Park, because that's the translation.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, Lookout and Mayfair decided that it's a kind of a fun name and it works, and they just kept it for the English edition. it definitely is different, and I
Yes.
guess people remember it as that German bear game.
So the Captain Bunny here is asking, will there ever be an expansion for Baron Park?
I've designed one, and Lookout have announced that they're working on it. So there's no release date or anything yet, but it's in the works, and I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
So there you go. If you're looking for more Baron Park, it's coming. It's coming at some point. So that's pretty good because it's such a great little game. You know, kind of a building out your area game. I really enjoy playing it. Here's another interesting question. If you have a good idea for a game, how do you approach an established company? Obviously, you told us a story about how you approach Zev, but how would you say for, I guess, budding designers watching this, what's the best way to approach a company?
Yeah. Well, it seems more and more now that most publishers really want to meet in person. So I think very few publishers these days take pictures over email, especially if they don't know you. So I think the best thing to do is to go to a convention, a big one like Gen Con or Essen, and try and set up a meeting, or just get to know publishers first and start a relationship, and then eventually maybe set up a meeting and pitch. If you don't live in an area where there is a big convention, like I didn't, I kind of got lucky that Zev visited that year. It's tough, but I think the best thing you can do is just get your games being played, release them in any form you can, try self-publishing or even print and play. Just get your games out there, and slowly your name will kind of travel around a little bit, and that's going to help you when you decide it's time to approach a publisher.
Yeah. So Seth wants to know, what feedback have you had on a game that was most beneficial? I mean, do you get a lot of feedback through the design process? And
yes. All sorts of feedback. So playtesting can be an amazing experience. It can be a hard experience, because when you're playtesting one of your designs, ideally what you want is your players to be giving you just their raw feedback about how they're feeling during the game. And sometimes that's really great because they love it and everything's going well, but sometimes they will just point out flaws and you can just see they're not enjoying something.
Yeah.
So I'd say the most beneficial feedback I get is players enunciating what's not fun, because if you're having fun, it's quite easy to see as you're watching the game, right? You're like, oh, people are having a good time, and they love that, and that mechanism's working. But sometimes if someone's just sitting there and they're quiet and they're not enjoying the game, you don't know what's going on. And so when a playtester is able to enunciate, oh look, I'm enjoying. Like the other night, I was playtesting before I came here, and it's a cooperative game, and on your turn you take 3 actions, right? And we were playing this game. Everyone said, oh, it's fine, it's working, it's going okay. But I could just tell something was missing. And someone said, I just feel like on my turn, I'm only taking half a turn and I'm not getting anything done. And it's just like a grind. And he was like, I just want to take 4 actions on my turn, right? And I went, that's not a bad idea. What would happen if I just gave everyone more actions on their turn? And sure enough, just adding 1 extra action suddenly made it feel like, oh, I can explore the board more, I can do more stuff on my turn. And of course I changed the length of the game, so you're still doing the same number of actions, but you're doing more each turn, and that created just a more positive feeling in the player. So that's a great piece of feedback when someone goes, I don't feel like this, or this isn't working, and then you can kind of drill down into that issue. Yeah.
Okay, so we got a few quick questions coming up here. Imhotep expansion coming to North America soon?
Yes, it's coming out this year. I don't know the exact date. It's the second half of the year, though.
Yes.
But it is coming.
Soon, Mike. Any word if Archaeology will get a reprint? They've been waiting for it for a while now.
Yes, I know Z-Man is going to reprint it. Again, I don't know the timing, but I know that's on the agenda for a new, the same edition, but a new print run.
Oh, here's an interesting one. Have you ever considered reusing some of your mechanics in heavier games? This is someone who's asking because they love cacao.
Actually, a couple of people have mentioned this. to me that the tile laying mechanism in Cacao with the workers on the edges of the tiles could work in a heavier game, and I agree. I think it could, but I don't think I am the person to design that because I've tried a few times to design more complex strategy games, and they haven't been very good. One day, I'd love to crack that nut one day, but go for it. Like, see if you can make it work.
Yeah, so there you go. Whoever, I gotta go back and see. Seth, if you want, go for it. You have permission, or go for it. Another question, since you've been talking about the companies. As a designer, do you have a veto on a theme and a name of your game if you really, really don't like it?
At the end of the day, the publisher pretty much has final say with the product because they're putting all the money and the effort into producing it. So, really, at the end of the day, it's their choice for theme and name and artwork. I've heard that super famous full-time designers get to a certain level where they get a bit more sway with the publisher and they can put clauses in their contract about certain things, but I guess I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm happy to trust a publisher's call because they know their market. They know they're not going to make a purposely awkward decision just for the sake of it. They want the game to sell. So I kind of just trust them. But yeah, I think in most cases you'll find that designers defer to the marketing people at the publishing company. That's just the way it works. Yeah.
So Adar, who I'm guessing is from Germany, said, "Will we see you at Essen Fair this year?"
I'm not sure. I'd really like to go. I've only been to Essen once. I'd really like to make it back this year, but I'm not sure yet. But if not, soon.
So here's another interesting one from Stefano. How far in the design process do you approach a publisher, and does the game have to be finished?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really varies for designers. For me, because generally I'm pitching at an event like this where I planned, a year in advance to be there and to bring some games and to pitch them. So generally I am pitching things that are like pretty finished, like I'll make a really polished prototype, I'll make sure I'm really happy with it, and I'll pitch what is essentially, a finished design. Of course, it may well change down the track, but that's what I do. But I do know that depending on your relationship with the publisher, other designers even show a complete work in progress and just say, hey, look, here's this idea I'm tinkering with. What do you think? Do you have any feedback? Do you have any input? If you really like it, maybe I could take it in a particular direction for you. So some designers have a different sort of relationship with publishers where they show things that are in progress. But I would say for new designers, and for me, you really want to be presenting the best product, the finished design.
Yes. No. I mean, it's a challenge for to get your stuff out there and figure out the best way to get it signed, isn't it?
Yeah. And I would say when you are pitching a game, you want to show it in its best light. So the prototype has to be, attractive. It doesn't have to be amazingly good art or anything, but it just has to look nice, play nice. I think you have to come up with a engaging, exciting way to talk about it to the publisher. So all that stuff does matter when you pitch. So I don't think you can just turn up with a bunch of index cards and say, oh, maybe there's a game. That probably won't go down so well.
This is probably why I've never designed a game, because I would have come with a bunch of index cards. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Phil. And
thanks for having me.
Congratulations on the success so far. And I know something that you guys don't know yet, but there's a really good game coming out from you very shortly, or I think it's very shortly. Mm-hmm. The one that I played like 5 times.
Oh, you played it 5 times?
I love it. Are
you talking about Gizmo?
Were we allowed to say that word?
We are allowed to say Gizmos.
Gizmos. Oh my God, this game is phenomenal. This game is phenomenal. Have people seen pictures? Do people know?
Yeah.
Anything?
So Simon has released like some images and a blurb about it. Yeah. So it'll most likely be at Gen Con and like full release at Essen. So yeah, that's my next game.
Yes, Gizmos is phenomenal. It's kind of a engine building game, but you have marbles, but in a very, and I have to say this because I've already been yelled at by Eric, in a very, very, very different and even better way than Potion Explosion. So no, it's not like Potion Explosion. It's better. I love the mechanics. I love picking out marbles and using those marbles for things. It's this game. This game I think might be the hit of Gen Con. It's that good.
Whoa.
Yes, I'm calling it now. I think
That's
it's
some
going to
high
be the hit
praise.
of Gen Con.
Well, that would be amazing. But I'm glad you liked it.
I loved it. Look, now we got a whole bunch of people going, ooh. So there you go. We've spoiled it. And let me let you go. I
Yep.
see Gil Hova
Yep,
over
yep,
there
yep.
next.
Cool.
So
Thanks again.
It's a pleasure having you, and have a safe
Bye.
flight back. And
Thank you.
you're leaving today back
I am,
to
I am.
Australia.
Yep.
So have a safe flight back, and we'll probably see you at Gen Con. Will you
Okay.
be there?
Almost 100%, but not 100%.
Okay. If not, you will see Gizmos at Gen Con.
Yes, you will
regardless.
see Gizmos there, even if I'm not there. Thanks.
That's a pleasure, Phil.
See ya.
Let's bring in Gil Hova from Formal Ferret Games. And
Hi everyone.
how are you doing, Gil?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Very good, very good. New Yorkers here.
Woo!
New
Well,
York
you're
is-
Florida now.
I know, but I still consider myself a New Yorker. I mean, I grew up there.
Well, I technically live in New Jersey, so I can't. I was born and raised in New York, in Long Island, though, so that's not even New York City. It's a long story.
But
New York is a nebulous thing, you know. New York is like. A lot of people want to claim that they're from New York, but when you pry, it turns out, oh, I live in Texas. But I consider myself a New Yorker in my heart. So I don't know. I try to be as honest and transparent as I can with this sort of thing.
how could you move to the enemy state? You know what's funny? This morning when I was like planning out these interviews, I don't know why, but I was thinking how we're both from New York originally, and I don't know why I started singing JC, and I was like H to the Izzo, V to the Izza.
Well, I'm glad you did that because somebody on Twitter wanted me to introduce myself with that, and I have a harder time with it, so I'm glad you did it. So we did it.
You gotta do wait. You gotta do 1, 2.
1, 2?
Sing some JC for us.
No, it's not. You don't want me to sing anything. You don't want me to sing a thing. Trust me. It would be good.
Do you get that a lot, where people equate your name to the Jay-Z song?
Yeah, my sister actually loved it. Like, my sister was, I think, a teenager at the time, so when that song came out, she was like, only call me Hova now. You know? It was pretty hilarious, yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know Gil, hopefully you all do, but if not, I know you have Formal Ferret Games, you signed a couple games. Give everyone kind of a history of...
Sure. Yeah, so I had a couple of games come out. I had one game come out in 2010, another come out in 2014. Those were Prolix and Battle Merchants. And then I decided to found my own company, probably because I had a stroke or something. So I founded Formal Ferret Games in 2014. My first self-published game was a party game, Bad Medicine. Then that was followed by The Networks, which is my biggest game. And then Wordsy came out last year, and that's a re-implementation of Prolix. And I just successfully kickstarted a reprint and expansion for Bad Medicine. So I'm sort of consolidating everything, trying to get everything back together. It's really hard to start a new company, but by the end of this year, I'm going to have my whole product line back in print and available at like PAX Unplugged for the first time. That's going to be great.
Nice. So it's nice kind of, I mean, to have your own company and to be growing it as you go. It's got to be an interesting feeling.
Yeah, it's amazing just to see it grow and grow and grow. It's very exciting.
So let's take some questions.
Yeah.
Let's take some questions and see. I see a bunch of things coming out for you already.
Somebody wanted me to talk about my ferrets. You know,
Yes, there you go.
If we do that, we'll be here all day. But I have two. I have an 8-year-old sable named Leela, and I have a 4-year-old cinnamon ferret named Trillion, and they are incredibly adorable. I mean, Leela is 8 years old, which is on the old side. She's a senior citizen, but she's incredibly healthy and she's doing great. They both have really great attitudes. They're very gentle. Most ferrets are extremely friendly and they love humans. They're my favorite animals in the world.
Do they wear suits also, or just on box covers?
So, fun fact: ferrets hate wearing clothing. Like they freak out. You know, I tried. They sell like little ferret T-shirts that like you put on their front and you Velcro on the back. And no, that was like the worst possible thing. I mean, I've never seen an animal in such panic. It was like, I'm sorry, let me take this thing off. And "Are you okay, little guy?" You know, so that was something. So yeah, no suits. My ferrets are happy in their fur.
Yeah. So we have a question here. Where is it? Do you have a personal design philosophy, and if so, what is it?
Yes. I think you could sum it up in 3 words: incentivize interesting behavior. Regardless of the kind of game you're designing, like even if you're designing a role-playing game, an educational game, some sort of a digital platformer, a CRPG, you want to be doing this. You want to figure out what the interesting thing players want to do and give them carrots, give them reasons to do that. And that is the heart of game design. That is what game design is all about. On the other hand, if there are things that in your game that are not going to be interesting, you want to give them sticks. You want to tell them, don't do this or the game will penalize you. It's carrots and sticks. And obviously in something like a strategy game, you've got multiple sets of carrots dangling. Like you've got this carrot and you got that carrot, and which one you're going to take. And that's really what makes a strategy game so compelling. Whereas something like a dexterity game, it's like, okay, this is the carrot that you want, but are you skilled enough to get it?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting philosophy. There's another question that goes with that, I guess. Do you have any particular tips for first-time designers in the late stages of the design process?
If you're in the late stages of the design process, I assume that, well, obviously, that probably means, I interpret that to mean that you have play tested the game with a ton of people. Not just, so you've gotten a lot of play tests, but you've gotten a lot of play tests from a wide bunch of groups. And if you haven't done that yet, I don't think you're in the late stages. It also means that as you're doing that, you're not getting too much critical feedback. Like a lot of the feedback might be, like at that point, if you're getting this number needs to be tweaked by 1, or I'm not crazy about this icon, and you're getting feedback of, I really like this game, where can I buy it? Or if you show up to a gathering without the game, and somebody's like, hey, did you bring that game? You know, that's where you should be in the late stage process. But so if you're at that process, you know, you're focusing on like the grace notes. So at this point, like I like to say that 80% is halfway done. So once you've got 80% of the design, you've got half of the work done.
Yeah.
And the other half of the design is getting that 20% polish. So at this point, like, it's a grind. And you may have to go a few steps backwards. Like, somebody may make a suggestion that's like, oh, but I've got to undo, if I try this, I've got to undo this and this and this. Well, try it. You can always sort of save it and be like, if it didn't work, you can go back to the old one.
Yeah.
You're also going to hit situations where people will make a suggestion that might seem to make it a better game for a different audience. And this is where you have to say, this is what my game's about, this is the experience I'm trying to make. That would be a cool suggestion, but for another audience, you know? So there are some times when, you know, you don't necessarily want to ignore play testers categorically, but there's times when you have to say, okay, I hear your feedback, I like your feedback, but I'm not going to implement it. And you don't have to tell them that. You just have to say, thank you, that's great feedback. And write it down, think about it, and you're not obligated to follow through on it, but I think you are obligated to at least hear it and consider it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I've never designed the game. I don't think I ever could. I love playing games, not designing them.
Well, we need people like you. We need people to play our games, so I appreciate it.
So we have another question here. Does running your own company interfere with the creative design process?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. No question. Well, first off, it interferes in as much as I have a hard time finding time to play published games. And like all of you, I'm a game nerd. I love playing board games. But these days, a lot of my time is focused on testing my own games. And if I have the opportunity, if I have a choice between playing a published game and getting another iteration, getting another test of my own game, those play tests are so valuable, and I really need that. So a week like this, where I get to play mostly other people's games, is beautiful. I love it. I get to play so many games that I've always wanted to try, and now I can have that experience. But there are good parts of it in that there are a lot of decisions. Like when you're a publisher, you're not just designing a game, you're designing a product, you know? And sometimes you can make a really good game, but if it's a terrible product, it's not going to resonate. So I, as a publisher, I have to make some calls, and sometimes you make those calls early on. Like my next game, one I'm working on now, is about building skyscrapers and high rises. And
nice.
yeah, and early on, it's like, this game has to look really good. Like, this game needs a really, really good table presence.
Yes.
Now, as a designer, if you're still pitching your game, that's still a really good insight to have, because when you go to the publisher, you can say, okay, here's how I envision this as a product. But there's times you have to know when to take the designer hat off and put the product hat on, the product designer hat on. And as a publisher, I love having that creative control over the look of the product and the feel of the product, so I can create a total experience for the players.
Yes. I mean, now I want to see the skyscraper game.
Oh, I've got it all week,
Yes.
So I think that's the downside and the upside. The downside of running your own company, you don't get as much time, but the upside is you do get more control. And one other thing I think that's important to note: if I weren't publishing my own company, I would have a day job, and I would still have a hard time finding time to do all this stuff. So, I mean, Rob Davio said something that was really interesting. He said that when you start your own company, all that boring stuff you do in your day job, you're still taking a lot of that with you to your cool, interesting, new work for yourself job. So,
Yes.
keep that in mind, that it doesn't totally liberate you from working in QuickBooks and doing taxes and all that boring stuff. Like, you still have to do it, but for me, it's a small price to pay.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a question that I didn't know, but let's
Okay.
ask it to you anyway. What was the original theme of the networks, not TV shows?
So the original theme of the networks was that it had no theme. So I had this auction mechanism that I was trying to desperately put in all my games, and the games would always reject it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this game with no theme. That way it's not going to get rejected. That way the theme won't, the rest of the game won't kick the game out. So I called it MacGuffin Market. Because a MacGuffin is the object
Yes.
in a film that everybody's going for, but it doesn't matter what that object is. It could be a trinket, it could be the lost tapes, it could be an idol, it could be a statue, whatever, a file. So since nobody really cares what it is, it's just the mechanical nature of it. I'm like, okay, let's make a bunch of MacGuffins. The players are going trying for MacGuffins. They're going to get gems. They're going to run gems through MacGuffins to get victory points, because obviously that's how MacGuffins work. Of course, this didn't survive past a few playtests because people were like, this theme is terrible. So we went to TV after that and never looked back.
You picked an amazing theme. I mean, I remember TV Wars growing up, and I was like, I love TV themes. So you picked a great theme. I mean, I work in TV, so of course I love it.
It's a hard theme. It's a surprisingly hard theme to work in.
So I'm going to take one more question here, because we have Jonathan Gilmour over there who's
Yeah.
going to be on next.
Yeah.
So if you guys have questions for Jonathan, get them ready. Last question is, and this is an interesting one. If you take a game idea to a company, how do you protect against your idea being stolen? Are there confidentiality agreements that are widely used?
All right. This is, oh my God, I have to answer this one in 3 minutes. Okay.
Or 4.
So here's the deal. I wrote a blog post about this. If you have an idea for a game, make your idea worth being stolen. Okay? Because there's a few things about the board game business that are different than the video. Like, if you're used to the video game business, you're used to this idea of somebody puts up this really innovative game in the App Store, and by the time the weekend's over, there's like 5 clones of it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen so much in board games, because in the video game business, that can happen. I see a really cool game, I can spend a whole weekend, get a bunch of Red Bull, code the game together, put it up in the App Store, and I'm done. If I want to do the same thing with a board game, here's what I've got to do. I hear this great idea for a board game. I immediately get a graphic designer. We put it together. We call a publishing company. We send them their files. They send us back the files saying, okay, these are all wrong and incorrect. You got to fix them. So a week later, we have the files. A couple of weeks after that, I get proofs. I look at the proofs and I approve them. Then they print. They don't print 50. They don't print 1,000. They're going to print at least 3,000, 5,000. So I have to pay them about $20,000, $30,000. Okay, fine. I pay them $20,000, $30,000. Now I've got 5,000 units of the stolen game sitting in a warehouse in China, which isn't going to help me. So now I've got to put all these 5,000 games on a boat somewhere. And you see what the price, and now it's a month for them to get. So it is so much work and pain to get a game published. Why put it on such a weak foundation? So that's one reason why you don't, I'm not saying it doesn't ever happen. Every once in a while it does. And when it does, Bruno Faduti just posted on BGG that, hey, this guy pitched a game to a publishing company. The publishing company rejected it, and then they released a game very similar. And already there are stores that are like, we're not going to stock this game. So reason number 2 is the business is very small.
It is. It's small and tight knit, and people aren't going to let people aren't going to let that happen.
And here's your third reason. Here's the third thing. So let's do a thought experiment. Let's say I'm designing a game, and I want someone to steal my idea. So how do I do that when I'm designing a game to get somebody to steal my idea? Well, I'm going to tweet about it. I'm going to take photos of it. I'm going to take it to as many conventions as possible. And there's a word for what I'm trying to do, and it's marketing. And marketing is really hard. So because you're going to be doing that anyway for a game, there's so much work. It doesn't happen so much in the board game industry these days. I'm not going to say that's never going to happen. If we ever get games that if print on demand ever becomes like a regular part of the design process, like I want to get a game, so I go to the game store down the street, they print a copy of it, and they come, then you're going to see a lot of it happen. But right now, there's so many barriers to entry. So if you're a designer, do not bring an NDA to your publisher. That is a great way to never work with that publisher again. Keep the NDA at home, come up with an idea worth stealing, and don't worry so much. And get your game out. Show your game, because I guarantee you no one's going to steal it. Instead, they're going to say, oh, this is an okay idea. Oh, and there's one other thing. Like, let's say you have an idea. Remember, ideas for a game are not games. You can't play an idea for a game. You only play a game. The difference is games have gone through iteration. The rule books have been written. The graphic design has been tested. There's been so much. So you have this idea for a game. I steal this idea for a game. One day I'm in the shower and I realize, ooh, what if I did this instead? Now our games are different. Yeah. And that's going to keep on happening. At the Gathering a few years ago, there used to be this competition where you'd give these various game designers various props, and they would go home with the props for a year. Like, they'd get like a spool and goggles and gloves and things like that, and they'd come back a year later and they'd all have to make a game with those props. So in a way, they all got the same idea for a game, and they'd come back and their games would be wildly different. So ideas diverge,
Yes.
So those 4 reasons are why you should not worry about your game idea being stolen. The last thing is game ideas don't get stolen generally. The games that get stolen are the games that have been reprinted several dozen times.
Yes.
A game that has not yet been published, you're pretty safe with. It's very high risk. If your game has already been reprinted several times, start looking at protections there. And at that point, you want to look at trademarks, not patents. That's a different story. But I think my time is up, and I'm not a lawyer.
Okay, well, your time isn't quite up, because after that great thing, I need you to wrap this at least once before we go. You got to do it. You got to do it. Come on.
Okay, crowd. I need your help. I need your help at home.
They want you to do it. They want you to do it. I'm going to see the comments come by here. They want you to do it. Just give us one. Give us one Jay-Z. One good Jay-Z. And then Jonathan Gilmour is going to be coming in here.
John, can you be a pinch rapper for me? I cannot. Oh my gosh, no. I'm.
Come on. H to the Izzo. V to
H
the
to the Izzo. V to the Izzy. See, my voice is dead enough anyway that maybe I can get away with it.
Well, it's a pleasure having you.
We're gonna fist bump. I'm a fist bumper. At
It's a pleasure having you.
Always a pleasure as well, Jason.
And,
I love it. I hope to show you High Rise.
Yes.
That's a working title, by the way. I might change that name, but High Rise for now is what I'm calling it.
Yes. Well, it's a pleasure having you as always.
Awesome.
And
likewise.
I will check out High Rise.
Woo-hoo!
Working title High Rise.
Yep.
And let's bring Jonathan Gilmour.
All right, come on over, John.
If you guys have
Thanks,
questions-
everyone. Thank you so much.
If you guys have questions for him, just start putting them in. Obviously, Jonathan's been doing a lot of things in the industry. We'll talk to him. You'll get an idea, and see what's going on. And I see another game that's not his that he has with us. So welcome to the show, Jonathan. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
It's been let's wait till you get in here. And for you, it's been a rather good year. I mean, Dinosaur Island came out this year, and it was it's been a mega hit so far.
Yeah, we're doing great. It's still on Kickstarter. People have a couple more days to get in there and grab it. I think it ends tomorrow.
Yeah, when you came out with this game, were you expecting it to be such a big hit? I mean, it kind of took off at Essen, and it was flying everywhere.
We did pretty well the first time I was on Kickstarter for the first edition. We did about 500,000, which was real successful. And we had pretty high hopes going into the second Kickstarter for the expansion and for Dinosaur Island. We didn't think it was going to do quite this well.
Yeah, I know it's been a great success. Now, obviously, since I can see already people are asking about the Pandasaurus people, you're kind of working with Pandasaurus in a way now. So tell us the history for those out watching who don't know what you're doing.
Well, I mean, I'm doing a lot of games with them. They're kind of one of the publishers that I work with. I'm freelance, so right now I show stuff to different publishers. But I'm so happy with the way that they treated Wasteland Express and Dinosaur Island. They're kind of one of my first tier show stuff too. And my very first game was Dead of Winter 4 years ago, maybe 5?
Yeah, 2013 or 14?
2013, yeah. And that came out and that did real well. So then, I had a few smaller releases with Vault Wars and Heroes and Tricks. And then this last year at Gen Con, I hit 10 releases out. So between the Dead of Winter Flick 'em Up.
And those Atari games. I mean,
the Atari games?
I'm an old school video game fan, so I was like, wow, you really made these games feel like you're playing a video game.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the way that they came out. It was a nice experience to work with some up-and-coming designers and find some people who haven't had a chance in the industry and kind of curate their designs and help bring them to market. So that was a really fun series to do. I'm real excited. I'm excited for people to see Asteroids before too long. Missile Command just came out, and that's a fantastic negotiation game, I think. Like, I haven't really seen anybody do a really fast-paced, quick version of diplomacy, and that's kind of what we're aiming for with it.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I mean, obviously on all those, and even Dead of Winter with Isaac and Dinosaur Island, you do a lot of collaborations. What's it like doing collaborations and working with someone else to co-design a game?
It's really my preferred way. I've only got 2 designs overall out of all the stuff that I'm working on that are solo designs. Almost everything else is with a co-designer. I really like it. It helps me keep my ideas in check, and I don't kind of run away with an idea that isn't good because I have somebody else to tell me that it's not good. And I like getting other people's input too and see what ideas they come up with. I think that always leads to a better product.
Yes. Yeah, so we've already got some questions coming out. I'm gonna slide this just for a second so we can scroll up. Okay. Well, your Kickstarter is about to hit 2 million, as we can see here. You must be really proud of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have a philosophy on how to incorporate theme with solid mechanisms?
So, some designers look at doing their design theme first, and others are mechanics first. And I like to consider myself an experience first. I always try to think of the exact experience that I want the players to have, and then work out from there. I think the key is to have all of the actions be very intuitive for the things that you want to do, and very evocative. I mean, a lot of times there's mechanical reasons to do things in a game, but if you can't come up with a thematic tie for them, a lot of times they lead to feeling disjointed and not really having a good reason to be there.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting because like me, I'm a mechanics guy more than a theme guy, while Tom is more of a theme guy. But of course I love it when a theme really fits in. So it's tricky to do everything. Obviously, you've hit it well so far in your biggest games like Dead of Winter. You hit it really well, and Dinosaur Island you hit it really well. Mm-hmm. So you've combined both the mechanics and the theme in, which is great.
Thank you very much.
So I see some more questions here. Let's see. What was your big influence game?
Two of my biggest ones were Cosmic Encounter, because that really showed me that balance doesn't always mean that things are equal. Balance can mean that everything's just ridiculous and the players can keep each other in check. And the other one is Hanabi, because that's an example of how elegant a game can be and still really get an experience across.
Seth has another question here. How did you sell your first game?
So I actually started off doing a print and play game called Pocket Dungeon, and I released that on Board Game Geek, and it was nominated for a Golden Geek Award, and it was the most downloaded file on the site. And I was going to release Dead of Winter as a print and play game as well. I was probably about a month away from just putting it out there for people to download and print out themselves. And some of my friends who'd been coming to our game day asked if they could invite some of their friends, and that happened to be Isaac and some other people. So Isaac was coming to our game day, and I knew he was working with Plaid Hat, and I just wanted to show him Dead of Winter at that point, and kind of asked him if he thought it was a viable product, because I really didn't plan on doing it as a job. I was just doing it as a creative outlet.
Yeah.
And he played it, and he really liked it, and he asked if I'd consider co-designing it with him, and it made it easier because he already had an existing relationship with Plaid Hat. So, when we approached them, there was already a little bit of a relationship there. Mm-hmm. So I really lucked into it, and I think that a lot of the times that's just how it happens. You develop relationships within the industry, and that helps you get your first game out there.
Yes, exactly. Trevor has an interesting question here. How many new games are you designing? And he's heard that many designers have multiple games at different points in the design stage at the same time.
So I have 18 projects with publishers right now, and I've got a little bit over 20 that are in stages before going to publishers. So almost 40 altogether.
Yeah. So what old game do you think is still good? Like, what inspired you? What kind of games inspired you?
I'm a huge fan, and I'm still not good at it, but I love shogi, which is Japanese chess. I'm a big fan of that. Mm-hmm. And I love looking at how older games did things, because they're usually a lot more abstract, but they still are loved for centuries.
Yeah, let's see what else we have here. The questions are scrolling by so quick. What other hobbies do you enjoy outside of board gaming?
Well, that really takes up the majority of my time. Between that and my family and my game group, I really don't do much else. I read a lot of comic books, and I do some of that as research, and some of it as just trying to stay in that hobby. And I read a lot of books, mostly sci-fi.
Yeah. Oh, here you go. Seth is asking about Dead of Winter. And of course, you could tell us the stories right now. He's heard that the theme was inspired by a non-zombie property, but he might be wrong. Tell us about the process of Dead of Winter.
So I started on it because all the other zombie games that I was playing, they all did different things. Like Last Night on Earth was more of a B movie, and Zombicide was kind of a Left 4 Dead experience where you're just killing a bunch of zombies, but none of them did the thing that I wanted, which was do like the Romero take on zombies, where the zombies were kind of background noise and the humans were the real interesting story there. Once we started talking with Plaid Hat about it, we kind of talked about changing the theme a few times, and we spitballed some different ideas, but none of them felt true to the source material. So really like the Romero movies and The Walking Dead were the big inspirations for it.
Yeah, it really has that feel when you play it, and obviously there's been a lot of expansions, a lot of other things that have come out. How involved were you in the Flick 'em Up version? I mean, I love the combining of Flick 'em Up with it. How involved were you in that?
I got to kind of see it a few times during the process and give some feedback, but because that studio kind of does their own thing, I didn't get much chance to be very involved, but I was real happy with what they came up with, and how they came up with all the neat little ideas.
Yeah, the zombie tower.
Yeah, I know Isaac got to be a little bit more involved because he works full time for Plaid Hat, whereas I'm a freelancer, so I'm kind of bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, so you brought something here, which isn't actually your design. No. Tell us about this. I haven't played it yet, but I saw people playing this, and I was so intrigued by it.
So, Nyctophobia is coming out from Pandasaurus Games, and I don't know the exact release date, but they should be, I think it's going to be Gen Con, is what they're aiming for. And this is a really exciting game, and that's one of the reasons I brought it, is because it's one of those games I'm really excited about to play, by Catherine Stipple. And at Unpub, every year, she has this enormous line of people at her table to play this game. And one player is the hunter, and the rest of the players are the hunted. and all the hunted players are wearing blackout glasses, so they can't see everything. And they're in this forest being tracked down by the hunter.
I'm about to put these on. While you tell the story, I want to see these glasses. I haven't worn these yet, so I'm very interested. Keep going, though. Tell us the story.
Yeah, so the hunter can see the entire game board, while the rest of the players are wearing those glasses.
Holy cow.
And they can't see anything. So they're feeling, so like you'll be putting your hand and feeling like these trees.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to figure out where on the board you are.
Oh, wow. This is a cool feeling. It's like, so, I mean, it's not Braille, but it's got, you could feel what's going on. You really, what do you have to do in here? Tell me about the game. I can't see any questions, but I really dig this. Am I holding it where people can see what I'm doing?
Yeah, you're pretty close up there.
This is really cool, and it feels cool. You can feel the bumps, and oh, wow.
Yeah, so the hunted players are trying to achieve a goal while the hunter is trying to kill them. So they're trying to run away, but you can't see where they are. So you have to kind of start to build a mental map of the forest and communicate with each other about where you think the hunter is and where you think they're coming from, so that you can all stay away from them. You have some tricks up your sleeve. The hunted can throw rocks around and try to hit him if they think that they know where the hunter is, which will slow it down for a turn. And they all have asymmetric player powers. So like one of them can jump over trees, or one of them can leave noise on the board. And that's another thing you can do is you can put noise down, and the hunter will always go towards the noise.
Yes. No, this is. I love unique games. I love like where you have to communicate, and I saw people yelling like, no, go right a little bit, and just I love those kind of games. You have to communicate, and you really can't see anything when you guys put on these glasses. When you get this game and put on these glasses, you can't see anything, and you're really feeling. And in a way, it's kind of neat because it's giving. I know we talk about like you could think about like people who actually are blind and what they have to go through to read Braille, and feeling that it's very unique and puts you so you can feel like that kind of situation. And it feels like it takes it even beyond gaming. It's very interesting.
Well, and that was kind of her inspiration behind the game. It was her uncle is sight impaired, and she wanted other people to experience what he did. So that was where she came from originally, and it really translates well. And it's such a cool experience. And the game is called Nyctophobia. It'll be out later this year.
Yes, this one. I'm gonna have to play this before the weekend ends now. I've been seeing people play it, but I haven't had a chance yet. I definitely want to play it, even though I just saw here while I had the glasses on. It was Jason should just guess at what the questions are, since I couldn't see them.
Yeah, and the other game that they have that's really been a hit here is The Mind.
Oh yes, that's right. Alan Moon was talking about that earlier when he was on. So, and you guys are, well, I guess, is it the Pansaurus brand?
Yeah, Pansaurus is bringing it over here to the U.S., and they'll be having it out here before too long. I've got a box it on the way here to give out to some people, so we'll make sure we get some copies around.
Yes, The Mind, I mean, I played The Mind, and I'm still in awe. I'm like, how did we do that? You don't think it's possible. You're like, do you want to talk about the game and tell people what it's like, or do we want to wait and let them experience it?
I think talking about it is exciting because it does something so simple in that, so in the first round, everybody has one card in their hand. And the cards are numbered 1 through 100. And the goal in each round is to play the cards from your hand in numerical order. But the hook is that you're not allowed to talk about anything at all. You have to play silently. So, like, if you and I were playing, we would just know the card in our hand, and we'd be trying to give nonverbal cues to each other about when to play our cards.
And mine could be like a 22, and yours could be like a 54.
Or a 24.
Or a 24, and then we're like, oh boy.
Yeah, so, like, eventually one of us has to play our card, and then the next player has to play it. And it's so incredible, the experience that it gives you with like just a deck of cards and a little bit of extra stuff. I mean, there's a few more rules, but it's fully cooperative, so you're trying to get through a set number of levels. You do have some tools that you can use. We can all raise our hand up, and if we all agree to do that, then we can spend one of our shurikens and everybody can discard their lowest card, which later on will give us some information, because each round you have to play one more card per player. So the first round is one card in each player's hand, then 2 cards, then 3 cards. Eventually we get to 8 cards that we have to try to play out in numerical order.
Not if you're me. The most I made it to was 6 so far. 6 was already crazy. It's funny because Meeple Up just wrote, it sounds like Hanabi mixed with the game, and that's exactly how I felt when I played it.
Yeah, for me, I think it's going to replace Hanabi just because there's so few rules to teach, and it gets that same experience across of limited communication and intenseness.
And it's really intense. After the game, you're like, how did we do it? When someone plays a card and then you get a card that's like one number higher than you're like, yes, we did it. And not being able to talk and not being able to signal really makes it, you really have to be in sync with everyone else. It's such a good game.
And I think a lot of couples are going to like to play 2-player. Like I played it with Rodney the other night for about an hour, 2-player. And like you just get more about the person each time you play it, and it's a really neat experience with just one other person too. Like I didn't think it was going to play that well 2-player, but it really does.
Yeah, I mean, I've played it only in 3 and 4 so far, but I'm going to have to try it in 2. I mean, I've seen a million copies floating around here.
Yeah.
It seems to be the buzz game of games so far, and
it's definitely got to be the most played one, because I think Eric alone has played it like 17 times a day.
Yes, Eric Lang played this with me, and he's like, Jason, come over here. I'm not telling you the rules. Let's just play. And this was the first time I played it, and he's like, just go with it. I'm like, well, what can we do? Are we allowed to signal? No, but just go. And you'll figure it out. And after you got to the second round and the third round, it was like, I had no idea what was going on, but we were getting all these cards in order. And it's so great. It's so great. I mean, your company has a lot of good stuff coming out this year. So it should be this one and The Mind and a lot of good stuff. And for you personally, you have a lot of good stuff coming out.
I do. I'm excited for this year.
Obviously, Dinosaur Island.
Kids on Bikes. I did an RPG last year. That'll be out real soon.
Yes. Nice. And you also worked on... there's like the collaboration game with the tarot cards that everyone did a little design on.
The Dragons game.
Yes.
Yep, I did one of the games for that with the local designer, John Burns, one of my good friends. Yeah, it's fun. We kind of did like a Hanabi style game for that using the deck, and that was a lot of fun to try to design with all the limitations of that deck.
So, for those people who don't know about this project, explain it. Explain the project and the designers involved and what happened.
Well, I mean, they got a ton of great designers involved. They essentially have this deck of cards that are, I think it's 11 pictures of different dragons with 4 copies of each. But beyond that, there's no other information on the cards. There's no numbers, there's no words, there's no suits or anything else. And the challenge was they contacted a bunch of different designers to just design one game for the system. So, it's a gaming system, and I think they ended up with like 12 games for it for the Kickstarter that were all stretch goals.
Did you contact other designers to find out what they were doing, or did you just submit something and hopefully yours was different than everyone else's?
Well, they kind of had like a master list of, as people would come up with ideas, they put them on the list. So you had a little bit of idea what the other players were doing. So that kind of eliminated some for me and gave me a little bit of direction, which was nice.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting when that's around to see like what everyone's done and get a whole bunch of designers' games with the same components.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, let me let you go because we're about to shut up. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We're looking forward to seeing what else is going to be coming out in the next year or two. I guess we'll say goodbye to Jonathan, and we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for watching. Here, our live stream from the gathering for the Dice Tower. Jason Levine, and we have Jonathan Gilmour. And again, thank you for watching, and keep playing games. And we love you all, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Tomorrow, actually, let me read off the list. Tomorrow we have Scott Nicholson, Eric Lang. I know I saw some comments earlier. Eric Lang will be on tomorrow. Tom Lehman and Kevin Wilson. So we have a good list of people tomorrow, and that will probably be my last day. But if I can get more people for Saturday, we might continue on with one more. Anyway, For everyone here at the Dice Tower, I'm Jason Levine, and thank you for watching.